Welcome, good morning. Sorry for speaking English, but Estonian is an important language in Estonia, but I have to admit outside we have a bit of struggling with it. So I will jump in directly. Thanks for the invitation. Of course, the first thing, a big happy birthday, 25th anniversary to all of you.
Thank you.
I'm happy. So let's start. First of all, who are we? You saw already the logo of RuralTour before in one picture that appeared when I think Radi presented. So it's a federation. We have members, we'll see in a moment, 29, all structures, organizations like MAATURISM, so provider-based, owners representing their interests. In total, it's, as I said, 29 members, 26 countries. You have the countries here. Of course, Estonia is highlighted. We have the web connection, which is mostly promotional. The professional content is more on Facebook, Instagram. So this is a purely professional site. I think you get the presentation afterwards in PDF, so all the links that are in the presentation, you can use them directly afterwards. So you see we are in all over Europe, not limited to the European Union. You see Georgia, you see North Macedonia, you see Serbia, Ukraine, but also the big countries, France, Germany, Spain, Italy. Ireland is missing, I have to say. They are not organized, but that's about, we are quite everywhere. And I have to say the Baltic countries amongst our members are the most active and the most, how to say, innovative or with new ideas or new concepts for many, many years. All three, Estonia, Latvia. Our president currently is from Lithuania, so Baltics are very strong. Congrats for that. A couple of pictures. You may know this lady on the left side. This is from our last General Assembly in Slovakia in May this year. So you see we work, right? We go out for excursions and we just make friends. The colleague on one is my colleague in the office, Giovanna, and Raidi, of course. So some figures about where do we stand. I have to say figures about countryside rural tourism, I'll come to this in a moment, is like cooking without knowing exactly what ingredients you have, because the definition is not very clear. We'll come to this in a moment, but roughly let's say 600,000 accommodation places, small, family run. Smallest one is a holiday flat with 2 or 3 bed places, up to 20, 25. Usually that's the size we talk about. So with a mean number of 10 bed places per unit, we come to 6 to 7 millions, which is already about twice, when we sum up across Europe, twice the capacity of Spain. Just to give you an idea, Spain is always this high level, huge tourism country. So if we sum up rural tourism, we are twice the capacity of all of Spain. 15% of the accommodation capacity in Europe. About more than 1 million direct indirect jobs. We calculate that every 4 bed places generate the equivalent to 1 job in local income. So you can calculate the effect. If you have a 20-bed guest house, you create the effect for at least 5 people employed. This does not mean necessarily that they are employed in your company, but you generate the money in your local economy. That's one of the reasons why when we favor so much this type of tourism in rural areas, because it has a very high impact on the local economy. So the income generated is, I put this in million because if I use billion, then we have a problem because the European billion and the US American billion, so million is clearer, 200,000 million. That's about the total income, total GDP of Hungary, to give you an idea. So again, it's many, many of us, very, very small, but when we sum up together, we generate quite a lot. So, very quickly through the evolution, the whole thing started already about 70 years ago. The first organization was JT France in France. Started as a support, declining population in rural areas, people emigrating, need to create alternative income to farmers. That was the basic idea. So from the starts in the 50s until end of 60s, 70s of the past century, it was mainly a farm support, farm tourism. Farmers started to offer accommodation. Not private people, farmers were the target group to be focused on, to be supported, to create accommodation, basically. Not thinking about a tourism product. So it was more looked at as an income substitution for farmers and not so much as a tourism business. And that's the thing we go through pretty much until the end of the century, until year 2000, where we talk about countryside rural tourism, farm tourism, more from the political point of view. Create income in rural areas, not thinking, well, and is there a customer who wants that? What does a customer want to buy? What is a tourist wanting to buy? This was not on the agenda in the past century. The past century, the idea was we need to do something that people get more money in rural areas. End of the story. Which was frequently dysfunctional, creating a lot of offer that had no demand on the market. Now this changed. Since 2000, so we are in 2025, which means this, for most of you, this is what you've gone through. We are definitely part of the tourism economy in every country, even in big countries that have the mass tourism like Spain. We are part of the tourism economy. Of course, smaller in size. Your proportion in Estonia is bigger than in Spain, evidently, or in Italy, because they have a mass tourism sector, but we are there. And especially since COVID, when everybody ran away from the massification, from the big places where with many, many people together, people went to the rural areas because this was more isolated, more possibility to keep away from the next and not to get this nasty virus that everybody was so afraid of. So this put us, as I call it, when you think about an iceberg, all this lump you have in the picture, all this has been there all the time, but it wasn't visible. It was too small to submerge. Now we are enough to be visible for somebody who thinks about a holiday, about a break, about a weekend, about an escape. Now going to the countryside is in the first 4, 5, or 6 choices. And that's a consumer research. You need to be in the first thing that people think about when they plan a holiday in order to have a chance to be selected. So there are 20 options, but people will only go for the 5 or 6 that are most up in their mind at that moment. All the rest will not even be considered. So if you're not considered in the first choice, you have no chance to be selected in the end. The good thing is we are now above this waterline. We are always one of the choices that people think about, which helps a lot for marketing and for getting on. Now, let's talk about the concept. Here you have on the top right the system that I still learned, or that was valid when we talked about rural tourism, countryside tourism 20, 25, 30 years ago. You had the yellow piece was just general tourism in rural territory. You had a big part, that's a green, which was all kind of small-scale rural activity, guest houses, private rooms, holiday homes, riding, etc., etc. And of course, where the whole thing started historically, as I said before, the agrotourism, the farm tourism. A running farm where people still experience a running, active agriculture. And this was orientated around individual tourism services. Not thinking about a wider context, but that you had accommodation, or you had activities there, or you had culture events, or you had heritage, but individual services. One here, one there, one there. That was the idea. Now, rethinking the whole thing, 20, 30 years later, there is no such thing as mass tourism in new infrastructure anymore. Nobody would think nowadays building the monster hotels that you still have in some Spanish, Italian, French, even in inland regions, the Alps, French Alps, the French ski centers, that's all macro. You wouldn't do this anymore. You wouldn't do it on the coastline, you wouldn't do it in the cities, you wouldn't do it evidently in rural areas. So nowadays, every new tourism development automatically thinks about a sustainable context. Make it make it sustainable. Well, this word is pretty getting empty, but make it durable in the time, not impacting too much. All development has some impact, but not destroying, not impacting, rather regenerating. That's the latest thing, regenerative tourism. Help to regenerate the territory, the society, the community. So that's the main thing now. So we talk about leisure recreation in rural territory when we talk about rural tourism. Then we have this old rural tourism understanding, which is the one you saw in green up there, which is now a lot less, because this was limited to only the small family and only the small and only the farmer, etc., etc. This is still there, but it's now a lot wider understanding of tourism in rural territory. Leisure, recreation, anything that you can do in a sustainable way in a rural area, in a rural surround. So when we talk about rural tourism as a technical word, rather look at this understanding, sustainable recreation, sustainable leisure in rural territory. So what we talk about, what do we want to do, achieve? Well, we want to impact. When I say extending the impact, I think about what you will see now, the economic impact, money. We want to create income in rural areas so you have a place to earn money, to have a decent amount of infrastructure, to have a quality of life, not to have to go to the bigger city. I know that this in Estonia is a relatively not so urgent thing, but when you go to countries like Spain, Italy, you have inland entire villages that are empty, entirely abandoned. People moved to the city, there was no way to income, and there's nobody staying in the countryside. So I hope you never get there, but Spain also 20, 30 years ago thought they would never get there, and now they are there, or Italy. So at least think about it. Anyway, the point is we want to create income for the local economy. So we have this small, you see the argument, only the farmer can do it. Only farm sells its own produce to their own client. Well, that's, of course, a very small economic impact for the local economy. We move on, a wider understanding, not only farm tourism, but private homes, small guest houses, etc., the old rural tourism understanding. It's a bigger market, it's more people that can buy, so for farmers, for local services, there's a higher volume to create income. So that's already a lot better for the local economy. But when we move up to what I mark as the yellow, then we have more visitors, more economy of scale, more options, more niches where small specialized providers still can find a place which they would not with the farm, they can just offer what they have. So you have a lot higher potential, and you can relate the whole local economy with tourism. Of course, that's not the end, because people go back from the visit, and if they have the opportunity, they tasted the cheese, they tasted the meat, they tasted the cider you're producing. I'm not talking about wine. This will come if climate change goes on. You'll also produce wine again in Estonia. You did in the Middle Ages, by the way. So you will do it again, but right now it's rather cider. But anyway, people still can get all this produce they consumed while they were on site, also when they are back. This is the next step we need to look at through logistics, through transport, through online purchase, that you keep this customer. He was there, but he tells his friends, and it's not just a family with kids that will order your cheese. It's all the friends of them they have in Tallinn or in Tartu or in Riga or wherever they come from, that say, oh, that cheese is great, they tasted it at a party and they also want to buy it. So there's a huge potential for local produce, and this is not any longer the tourism visiting economy, it's a follow-up that can be generated for your local economy by having visitors that make a good propaganda for your area. So when we look at the percentage, the potential alongst the value, of course 100 is a dream. I have to admit this is a bit political presentation. We are in the 15% area, let's say, of the potential right now if we just stick to what we have with a new understanding. But it's evidently already a lot more than if we only go to the farm tourism, because this farm tourism is nice for the individual farmer, it's nice for a farmers union, but the potential impact, the potential benefit for the territory which we talk about We don't save the inland Estonia by supporting 20, 30, 100, 200 farmers doing farm tourism. We support the rural eternal economy of Estonia by having 2,000 or 3,000 small tourism providers working in the countryside that buy from the local farmers, that employ people in the area, that generate a local economy. This is where we can really create an impact and a relevant impact from countryside, from rural tourism. So keep this in mind, and now we move on. Long-term trends, that was a title if you think about that Riley put me. I'll be very quick on the trends because we can talk about a full day about just trends. Each of them gives for a full speech. But anyway, sustainability. Well, I think that's everybody with nature, culture, community, respectful, mindful travel. People still go for the mass tourism, but a considerable increasing amount, both from the older generation and from the very young Gen Z travel behavior. Is very interesting. They want a reason, they want a mindful objective. Why do I travel? They want to experience local communities, want to experience what is going on in the place, understand what they visit, participate. So this is a very good market for what we can offer. We have experienced visitors, both the younger and the older one. As I said, this participative experience, that's part of the mindful travel as well. And a very interesting point that came up 2 years from colleagues in Austria who are generally 10 years ahead in market research, et cetera, whatever they do, they are just fantastic because they are very well integrated also with the Austrian tourism industry, which is very forward-looking. And they brought up a basic concept, which is interesting. Those of you who are a bit investigative or like research, look up the link megatrends. Megatrends is a thing in society. Where do people, especially in urban areas, of course, what do they want? What are their problems? What are their issues? What are their wishes? What do they lack? What do they miss? Where do they have emotional problems or emotional strength? And the basic idea is when you go on a holiday, when you go on a break, you want to get out of all that you have every day. In my times, this was called in marketing discriminative or a dissociative feeling. That was the same, basically. You want to get out of what you are living every day. Maybe this is not so much an issue for rural population, but for urban, they really want this contrast. No noise, no cars, no massification, no being number X in the queue, but being personalized, having your space, being able to talk, to have time, to sit, just do nothing. So, looking at the mega trends in urban society in Europe, let's say, which is our market, we find a lot of things where we can say, okay, we just need to position us in the opposite of what is a mega trend to have a market potential, because this is what the visitor is looking for. So I know it's very abstract, but for those of you, as I say, who like this kind of more conceptual thinking, have a look at what megatrends are, where they currently stand, and imagine yourself, where could you put yourself on the opposite side. So I said we are fashionable since COVID. Everybody talks about suddenly rural tourism. 2.93 billion overnights in 2023. That sounds quite a number, billion, European billion, not American. So that sounds a lot, but this also means that we are now suddenly in the view of the main tourism policy. You would not believe how hard it was 20 years ago to even be listened in Brussels when you came up with rural tourism in the tourism department of the Commission. What's that? These farmers doing some tourism, absolutely uninteresting, no relevance. Now suddenly everybody's on farming, on rural tourism. The rural tourism, nature tourism, oh yeah, that's the great thing. After COVID, I told you, iceberg, remember. So that made it. But of course, this puts us in the viewpoint of a couple of challenges, which I will quickly go through, because this is also for you, it's maybe not immediately relevant for your business tomorrow, but yes, for positioning yourself, your offer, your ideas, what you want to do in the future, and of course for the organization as well to see where should we look at. It gives you a couple of things. So, first thing, evidently, the climate change. I will not go very deep into this. I can imagine in Estonia maybe you are even a bit of happy when it gets warmer. Some of our members in Southern Europe are facing the problem that they have less demand now in summer because people are afraid it's too hot. So it's always two sides of the story. But even if this is not a main issue in Estonia, probably we all should work towards EU neutrality and a couple of actions that allow our management of the services and the surrounding services. It's not just the accommodation, it's also the travel to the place, the travel at the place, how things are produced, how things are managed. All of this, it's quite convenient to have a look at. But I will not go deeper here. The next one, which also I talked with Riley yesterday, and she said, well, this is not a topic in Estonia. You may have heard about Venice, people protesting, Barcelona, locals shooting with water pistols at tourists, Malaga, close by to where I live, Seville. These are the hotspots. And you think, well, this will never happen in Estonia. Well, I remember when these first came up 3 years ago, I think I was invited for a presentation or a panel, and I made a quick survey amongst our members in the RuralTour in the Federation, and I think 2 or 3 said, well, yeah, this could be something. 90% or 80% says not an issue. 3 years later, this year's summer, we had, and last year's summer already, in several places in Austria, even in the Balkans, where you think, okay, Balkans is not so far from the state of development than Estonia or the Baltics in general. Spain definitely, France, we had problems where the rural places became overcrowded. They had to cut the traffic, they had to stop the traffic, they had to send people back, they had to say, we cannot do it anymore. So it may sound a future for you now, let's talk in 5 years. I'm not saying all over Estonia, but I could imagine specific places in the summer season. I could think about the surrounding of Pärnu, I could think about Saaremaa, where this could become a problem in the future. So think about it. Just be aware, it's not growth. Keep in mind that there might be a need to have visitor control, access control, visitor flow control, things like this. Very, very important for rural areas, destination management. The past was you had a tourism department in the governments or in the regions, and they did marketing. They went to fairs. When I came in yesterday, in Helsinki airport, there was a group of Spanish people. They came from a promotion of Spain in Japan. They were flying back. They had a stopover in Helsinki. They were talking. I heard Spanish. We started talking. Promoting. That was the historical way of the DMO. Destination, M can stay for marketing and M can stay for management. So historically it was a destination marketing organization, selling outside, no management. On the ground, people find the way. Well, what is the point when we talk about our type of tourism? We have one place here, 2 kilometers the other one, maybe a small village with a bar, a restaurant, a guest house together, then another one 10 kilometers away. You have to travel, you have to reach, you have to document, you have to find a way. This is impossible to manage by the individual providers. They are too small. They are 1, 2, 3 people working, and they have to attend their visitors. They cannot manage visitors' flow. They cannot make a marketing campaign together. They cannot put this on a map. They cannot put this on, create a local internet site. Impossible. And if anything happens in this area, they cannot react individually. They need to have something backing behind. What is a result? That's the task of the destination management organization. This is why this is in orange and not in yellow as the rest of the word. Doing more than just marketing. arrange for training. Needs analysis, training, infrastructure, gaps in product development, contingency management when something goes wrong. It starts raining heavily. What can we offer our visitors to do? Austrians do this perfectly. So if you want a model, look at Austria. Austria is absolutely perfect on this. We can have on this a longer talk if somebody's interested. I did some research on alternative models in the past, so if anybody wants more info, happy to contact me. Overregulation, well, that's an old problem in all the hospitality, but especially the small ones. They are usually put in the same box, legal-wise, like a big hotel, and one fits all doesn't work. You don't have I remember a case in Spain, they required fire protection regulation to signpost the fire exits. And there was a single standing holiday home with 3 exits on the balconies, main door and 2 balcony exits, all rooms going to outside, and they got fined because they didn't have this sign points where to leave the building. I mean, this kind of thing is stupid, but this happens when you have a one fits all. So we need flexibility, just as an example, tax-wise, simplified accountancy rules, etc., etc. So overregulation and skills and competencies, that's always on the last. I know everything. Or maybe a bit learning there, a bit there. How can I do a Facebook, but that's it. Well, it's a bit more about that. The biggest changes in tourism will come through technology in the next years. 3 years ago, there was a saying, in 2030, 80% of jobs will be new. This was always exaggerated, but it caught the attention. What is true is new profiles, new requirements, new job, even in smaller hotels, new job profiles are appearing that did not exist 5 years ago. So we need to be prepared. A small one has to cover, at least know what it's about. You can't do everything yourself. It's 2 or 3 of you running your business. You can't do the work of a team of 20, but at least you should know what is going on and maybe subcontract this to someone. So on this one, there's a European initiative it's called Pact for Skills, which looks precisely into this. What are the new upcoming needs, requirements in knowledge and skills and competencies? How can we train them? What opportunities are there? How can we mentor? How can we advise? And just to give you 2 examples on what is happening with these European initiatives. The first one is from the Pact for Skills. The second one is a project from the Single Market Program where you participated. The first one is next week, 9th of October. Next week? Yeah, next week. Webinar where the idea came from this assembly where you saw the pictures before. And then I asked our members, well, is there anybody who could suggest a speaker or who does something already in artificial intelligence? I can tell you the only one that replied was Riley, Estonia. So you're again up to your fame that you're the IT savviest country in Europe. We talked with one of your trainer speakers, Christo, who many of you maybe know because he gave courses already, I understand, in Estonia. And he agreed to make a very simple introduction of 20, 30 minutes, something like this, on AI. We have another colleague from Austria. They do something. We have 2 or 3 small practical cases. We also have the Tourist Guide Association, single people that start using AI. And we do this event, as you can see, at a provider-friendly time, late afternoon, so you can maybe between or before lunch or before dinner or after dinner, you can sit 90 minutes and just listen and watch. And of course, maybe get some new ideas. So that's one thing. And the other one was a Eurocluster, where 10 companies from Estonia participated. Is by chance anybody in the room who was benefiting from that? You. Yeah. Are you the same or you are 2? So between you 2 already, you earn 10,000 euros through us, you see? and maybe some more. This was a very, in fact, we are proud. The idea was copied from a similar concept that was done 5 years ago in Spain. Not waiting for the providers to come to some central office, but say, okay, who has an idea? We go to them, we help them, and we see on the ground what they are doing, and we work on their reality, not what we want to implement, but what they want to do, and then we don't tell them do this, we help them to do what they want to do. So that was a basic idea. While these projects usually struggle with finding sufficient beneficiaries, we managed in the end 188 in the consortium, but out of these 100 came only from RuralTour. 188 in 19 different countries in Europe, so you can imagine that was quite a challenge to manage. But it worked really good. All are on a single website. You see that there. You can see the cases, what was done in each of them. And I'm quite sure we just got the final approval of the justification last week, Friday. So now for the Commission, it's officially closed. And I can bet that this will be put forward in many, many events in the future as a lighthouse project because it really had excellent success. So this is something where you can see European structures can help you, can bring you together, can make an exchange, can support. And you are there thanks to your national structure. So one more reason to be and remain member if you need any. Last slide, I think. The risk, of course, we are all fine. It's all great. Visitors come and more and more and more, at least across Europe. I hope in Estonia as well. Last year was, this year was stable. Previous year was a record year. This year was more or less normal. Depends on the weather, of course, as well. But yes, we are now, everybody loves us. Administration loves us. European Commission loves us. National government loves us. Oh, how great rural tourism. Oh, yeah, how nice. They always liked us. But now they suddenly love us. That's a difference. They want to give us something, but it's like a hug by a big bear, you know. You're not sure if you want it, because maybe the hug is a bit too strong and you're asphyxiated afterwards instead of being stronger. So we also need to understand that we are no longer the small, tiny ones. We are part of the system. And being part of the system means part of the system is a tourism system. The tourism business system has its rules and it has its ways it operates, and it has a bit less tolerances in many aspects where you say, okay, yeah, we are just a small service. It goes through. It does not even go through anymore in Airbnb. Airbnb started with almost anything went on the market and was accepted. Now if you run Airbnb, if you don't offer an excellent standard which sometimes is higher than in hotels, you're just out, because visitors score you with 4 and 5, and if you have a 4, you're already almost bad. So you need a 4.5, otherwise people don't go. So we need to learn, but as well, and that's a message very clearly to anybody from public sector. Probably in Estonia it's easier because everybody knows everybody, so you've been working together for years and you know the reality pretty well. But in bigger countries, it's sometimes really necessary to shout very loudly, okay, now suddenly you want us, you want this kind of tourism, you think this is the future. Fair enough, fine, we're happy. But then please understand that what you had as a framework for hotels with 200-300 bedrooms, 150 employees, annual turnover of millions of euros, this framework, this regulation, this management structure on the ground does not work for our type of tourism. So if the system wants that small scale, decentralized, integrated, sustainable is working, can survive and can thrive, it means that the rules, the system also has to change. And this is something where we need simply to raise our voice and be organized, because if we are not organized, it will always work in the sense, in the direction of those who have the stronger voice, and that are always the bigger ones. So to conclude, and that was it. I don't have to talk very much, I just go through the pictures. Doesn't lead anywhere, right? Well, you could imagine what happens now. Join together, first eat the two from one and the two from the other. Cooperation is better. Thank you very much, and a good success for the meeting.